What's up, guys? Here with you with FC Wonder Kid, episode 121, and here with my guy, Bretson. How are you?
I'm overwhelmed. I'm great, actually, but I'm overwhelmed. Alex, transfer window closes. You have ridiculous games. You have the Champions League draw, the Europa League draw, the Conference League draw. I mean, everything just comes all at once, and it is impossible to keep up, but we're going to do our best, right? We're going to do our best to keep up with this.
Fuck Tuesday, we're gonna do the best we can because the community deserves it. And if you love the weekly podcast, the Monday show, do not forget to like this video on YouTube. Episode 121. It's going to be a long season and a fantastic one because at the end, we have the Euros. And we already have national team football next week. So the podcast next week is going to be dedicated a lot to national team football, international football. But Premier League football has been unbelievable. And on Saturday, something ridiculous happened. It was the second time ever in Premier League history that three players scored a hat trick. Son, Haaland, and Evan Ferguson. All three did on the same day. The second time ever that has happened. So, in terms of talents, I'm happy, Bretton. I'm so stoked for what's happening.
I can absolutely imagine you are. I mean, even crazier, Evan Ferguson did it in style, right? And I believe that Evan Ferguson, I think you've got more to say about this, but very clearly, it looks as if this kid has been in this league for years.
Yes.
He's got confidence of a 28-year-old, not of an 18-year-old. And to be honest, this is just a testament to what Brighton has done. I mean, what Brighton has done in terms of giving him that confidence, in terms of building the actual people around him to make Ferguson have his shots at it. And who did he join on the day? It was Evan Ferguson, it was Erling Haaland, and it was Son. And that in and of itself, putting Son in that category, comparing it to last year, that's like some pretty good company to start the year. But to have an 18-year-old score a hat trick, it's
special. It's
amazing.
Special, Bretson.
Yeah.
And Evan Ferguson scored a hat trick against a Champions League side, Newcastle, this season. And he has got 24 Premier League games, 10 goals, and 2 assists at the age of 18. The best Irish player right now in football? That can be said. He's not British. The best Irish player. I'm so proud to say that. And it's just a start for Evan, completely. And you said Son.
It is.
Son.
Yeah.
Son at striker has to be what happens at Tottenham, clearly. Richarlison was lacking in goals, and we saw that in full hand against Burnley. Burnley ain't an easy team, but Tottenham, the new style of play Tottenham of Big Ange, with Son as striker, 3 goals scored. And it's just so good to see the fullbacks highly involved. Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro. You heard it here first at FC Wonder Kid. That will be one of the best fullback duos this season. And then you see James Maddison with the number 10, completely inspired. One of the best signings this transfer window. And look, I know you're a big fan of Brennan Johnson. Will we see him play, Bretton? That was a bold move for 45 million. Or 40?
Yes. Yeah. I believe he actually will. I believe he will. I think, you know me. I'm a little bit of a financial stickler when it comes to this. So they definitely overpaid for him. But what it comes down to is Brennan Johnson gives a completely different profile for Ange than any other attacker that he currently has. He's going to be the paciest player on the field by far, so he will definitely get his opportunities. But you know what's like a breath of fresh air? It's the fact that every one of these signings so far, right, for Spurs have seemingly had a purpose, right? That you know why they're there, right? Brennan Johnson is the first time I looked at it and said, might this be a panic buy? And then you think about it, and I really think that Brennan Johnson could do very, very well at Spurs because he is not Kulusevski. He is not Richarlison. He is not Son. Johnson will get his shots. And you have to remember, in a purely counterattacking team last season with Nottingham Forest. He had 8 goals and 3 assists. Right?
True.
That's a pretty good job for a team that was a relegation battler for most of the year, and brought in like 25 players around him. And he's still shown as the best player in the field. So I thought about this one a lot, and I'm glad you even brought it up, because this was the first time in Spurs' window where I was kind of like, ooh, is that necessary? And you know what? I think it's a winner. I like this one. I like the Brennan Johnson signing, and I am a big fan of Spurs right now, as I said at the beginning of the season. It's early, but what is it? 14 points out of or 13 points out of 4 games. That's a damn good way to start, right?
Yeah, it's 4 games, 10 points. That's pretty good. Yeah, I agree. Unbeaten right now. I agree. But it's good signs. I completely agree with you, Bretton. Tottenham have changed, and let's see what's gonna happen with the season coming now. But yeah, you could be right. I'm so sorry. But let's go with Chelsea. Chelsea that is not having the same luck, okay? And I saw a piece of news that I was pretty surprised. And I understand now. Like, it's hard if you don't sign experience. And Chelsea have a policy that has been speculated that they couldn't sign any player above the age of 25, and that's why James Maddison didn't go to Chelsea. Look what it's got them. Not the best transfer window, in my opinion. So if Maddison would have gone, that would have been much better. But they did get Cole Palmer. Joe Shields, I think he's highly involved in that deal. Joe Shields, if you don't know, director of scout, he was at City, he was at Southampton, and now he's at Chelsea. And he always brought Romeo Lavia wherever he went. So seeing Chelsea how it's going, it's worrying. It's worrying to lose with Nottingham Forest.
It is, and it doesn't necessarily make sense, that particular transfer policy. We all know it makes sense for Football Manager. We all know it makes sense for Football Manager. Plus, it's more fun when you're scouting all the wonder kids in Football Manager. But listen, this particular policy does not get you back to the top of the podium. It means you also have to thread the needle of continued development, right? Not just of the player himself, but also of the psyche of the player. And I don't think Chelsea's necessarily equipped for that unless they started at Cobham, per se. And I really just don't understand how 1.2 billion euros in just 3 windows, they have averaged 10 plus players coming in, and they have created almost an overload of competition when it comes down to it, that I feel like half these players coming in that are under the age of 23, or I'm sorry, all of these players, what is going to make them better, Alex? What is going to make them better? Playing time. And if you can't offer them playing time, what the heck can you offer them? So why couldn't they go after, maybe carve off 200 million of that and go after a Rafa Leao instead of going after 3 guys like Mudryk, Madueke, and come on, help me out with another one, like a Chukwuemeka, who are all going to step on each other's toes, per se. I know that's not a perfect, trio there, but that's what I don't understand about this. Fine, have that policy in place, but also have an exception rule where you look at a James Maddison, or hell, you look at like any one of the shrewd pickups that have happened in the Premier League, like Ward-Prowse at West Ham, right? Look at these guys that can make an impact right away and help facilitate the development of those wonder kids you bring in. You and I are all for this, but I don't understand it. The only world-class from the get-go player that they signed, Alex, we both know him.
And
Enzo Fernandez.
And Nkunku, too.
Enzo Fernandez. And Nkunku.
I think
absolutely right.
Pochettino is very unlucky with Nkunku getting injured. I honestly see the style of play of Chelsea, and I think he was surrounding it around Nkunku. And honestly, Caicedo didn't have a bad game against Forest, but that mistake led up to the goal that Elanga scored. So he capitalized. And I completely agree with what you're saying. Todd Boehly, the Todd Boehly era at Chelsea, you cannot say they're in a better state than what they were before he arrived, Todd Boehly.
No way.
And that is what's worrying. You had Hazard-type players in the past. Now you have Mudryk that wants to play more. He needs to play more in order to develop. I completely agree. It's looking bad right now at Chelsea.
It is, and I'm also like, I think they overpaid for Cole Palmer. It's weird to me that Manchester City, I mean, maybe not that weird, but they would sell to technically a in-league rival, but they clearly don't see Chelsea as a threat, period. And that's why Cole Palmer goes there. We know he's immensely talented, but at the same time, should you really be spending 47 plus million on someone that's just immensely talented? And that's what just
Very well
it
said.
rankles me. It rankles me because you've got guys like Nico Jackson, you've got guys like Mudryk. You look at them as guys that should be guys coming in off the bench or getting spot because you have, spot starts because you have Champions League. You don't have Champions League football. So to give, Mudryk 15 minutes to shine over, I think, 11 of his 17 games or something, and then his confidence goes plummeting because he's not off the mark. He's not doing well. I just don't see this is going to literally be pervasive throughout their whole entire team. You see it in Nico Jackson right now too. He's got six massive missed chances this season. He's getting in those places. One of these days, I'm sure he's going to put them in the back of the net. But as of right now, that's got to degrade a person. Caicedo needs time. Everybody needs time. But
he can improve a lot, Nico Jackson.
He
I
should.
agree with chances creation, and he will be capitalizing on them soon. I agree with that. But you said City. They don't see Chelsea as competition by selling Cole Palmer. I completely agree. Like, City is the team that sold Aguero, and they got Julian Alvarez and Erling Haaland in the meantime to replace them. So the management of Man City understands that right now they are in a world-class level, that top of the world. Yeah. So I'm saying with Man City, what a week it was for Erling Haaland. Yeah. Erling Haaland became the PFA Player of the Year. Erling Haaland became the PFA Erling Haaland became the PFA Player of the Year. He won the UEFA Best Player Award, and he scored a hat-trick in this beautiful game that made him become the quickest to score 42 goals in 39 games ever in Premier League history. Erling Haaland is doing this, and he's going to be top 3 in the Ballon d'Or, if not win it, okay? It's a discussion in the internet right now if he wins it or not. I think he's not going to win it, but still, I think he's going to be runners-up in the competition, the Ballon d'Or. But City right now are 12 points, 4 games in. Yeah. They're looking unbeatable, and honestly, right now, nobody wants to face City because Guardiola has everything organized. He sold so many players, and yet he replaces them with quality too. That we'll be talking more in this podcast, okay? So stick in the podcast to learn more about the best moves that City did. So do you have anything in the Premier League more, Breton? Big things, though. Liverpool.
Just a shout out. Liverpool looks good, man. I mean, Dominic Szoboszlai looks great. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But to be honest, just to go back to City, a quick shout out to Oscar Bob, the 20-year-old, also Norwegian talent winger. To be honest, I thought he was a little bit younger than that, but my goodness, Norway is cooking for the future. If you're keeping track of this stuff, because Haaland, Odegaard, sure, they're like the old guys when you come to think of it. But behind it, you've got Bob, you've got Antonio Nusa, you've got Sheldrup, who I understand is moving back from Benfica to Nordsjælland, which is going to be great for his development moving forward. But what it comes down to is I don't know if it will actually come to fruition, but Oscar Bob, if he becomes another Rico Lewis under Pep Guardiola, I'm going to tell you right now, I could see it happening. The kid is lightning quick, and he has the balls glued to his feet. So it was great to see him get some time. And I'll be honest, I did not get to see the game. I got to see what he did afterwards.
I watched that game. He was quite good. Quite good coming off the bench. He seemed really good. Sergio Gomez too, highly involved as it seems. With Man City, and I'm going to go more about Man City ahead with their transfer policy that we're going to talk of the best clubs in the transfer window. But going with Liverpool, Liverpool are 15 games unbeaten, 10 wins, 5 draws. Jurgen Klopp has the team he wished, finally with a new midfield and a new number 8. Dominic Szoboszlai. Dominic Szoboszlai is one of the best under-23 talents in the world. If you watch Hungary, if you watched Leipzig when he wasn't injured, you would know that he's one of the best free kick takers in the world too. Liverpool fans, you are just getting started to see a great career. And I want to say too, Salah staying is a must if Liverpool are going to get top 4. That win is with confidence, but having a player like Salah, he's unreplaceable. You can't replace him, and especially when the transfer window has finished for us, but not for the Saudi League. He can go in a year for the same price, in my opinion, Mo Salah, okay? In my opinion, I'm not joking. And Trent, I want to say Trent Alexander-Arnold, too, had a magnificent game, and I think Trent acknowledges that right now he's one of the leaders of Liverpool, one of the oldest players serving with Jurgen Klopp, and he's got 55 assists in the Premier League, ahead of Juan Mata, ahead of Hazard, and ahead of Ozil. Trent, at such a young age. Champions League winner, he might win another Champions League too in his time at Liverpool. That's the dedication and how good he is. I don't know if it's with Klopp, but I think he's going to be a player that stays at Liverpool.
Are we thinking of revising our predictions, our preseason predictions right now? I mean, you sound pretty high on Liverpool, but no. About Liverpool, you mentioned first off, hey, they got that win over the weekend
Big win against Aston Villa,
right? Yeah,
big win.
They got that win. Yeah, and so my biggest takeaway from this weekend is there a cause for concern when it comes to the clubs like Newcastle, clubs like Aston Villa, clubs like Chelsea? For Aston Villa to come off a big win, but have that opening day loss to Newcastle at 5-1, and then follow it up with this loss, it just seems like they are going to be struggling all season and beyond, potentially, to get that next lifeline or that next line up to another tier, whereas Newcastle's in that same boat. 3 straight Premier League losses for Newcastle United. Nick Pope had what I would call a very uncharacteristic mistake.
Tough games, though. City,
they are
Brighton.
tough games. They are tough games. But that is what you prepare for. That is what you bring in Tonali for. I don't know why you spend as much as you spend on a Harvey Barnes and an Anthony Gordon, but it is what it is. I did say there'd be a reversion to the mean with some of these players. It still is very early, but they had Newcastle United had 5 losses all season last season. They already have 3, and they've done it 3 in a row. And on top of that, Alex, guess what happened? They got punched in the face this week. They got a Carabao Cup next draw against who? Manchester City, and then they've got a Champions League that would be considered, I'd be surprised if it's not considered, the actual group of death, right? Maybe. PSG, Borussia Dortmund, who am I missing? Newcastle United, and AC Milan.
We're going to get more with the Champions League predictions in this video, but completely agree with what you're saying with Newcastle. It's going to be an interesting season, especially when they get top 4 last season. That was well said, Bretton. And a huge game. Let's not forget. Rice, baby, okay? 3-1 win from Arsenal. Like, to see the VAR call on Garnacho, the face of Garnacho said it all afterwards.
Tough.
And seeing that after Havertz is subbed out, I'm not saying Fabio Vieira had a masterclass against Man United, but the influence clearly had some with Gabriel Jesus coming on too. And Fabio Vieira got that assist, and it was a 3-1 win. And I'm starting to be worrisome. Like, Arsenal fans, you should be worried if Havertz is starting every game, because it seems to be a handicap towards playing a Partey, Rice, Odegaard, or even playing a Rice, Fabio Vieira, Odegaard. 2 midfields that are more in form right now. So let's see if Havertz can get back to form that we've seen, 3 years ago? Like, that's the case right now. That is the case. But you can say right now that Man City are the favorites to win the Premier League, but that Arsenal win, the resilience showed. Once again, they still haven't lost, and they have only 1 draw. Okay, and this is an important win in terms of motivation. You got to win these games, and Declan Rice, that's why they pay big on him.
But that is fight to the end type of mentality, and it was much needed, especially after, I believe it's Thomas Partey news, right, that he'll be out maybe a month or 2. And Arsenal, I'll be honest, they looked vulnerable the majority of the game, and so did United. United is not going to say they really didn't do much well, Alex. There's nothing that I'm looking at and saying, oh yeah, this is a team that's going to replicate their position in the Premier League this season. But I'll tell you, what stood out to me in that game was the Martinelli giveaway that led to the Marcus Rashford goal, where we saw that William Saliba and Ben White in this instance were definitely vulnerable at that moment when Rashford was able to kind of put it curl it past them when they both kind of did the same thing. But what I loved about it was Martinelli gave that away to Eriksen. Eriksen then threaded the through ball. Great. 1 minute later, Martinelli is the one that finds Martin Odegaard through traffic, basically, and Odegaard puts away one of those shots that you look at and you're like, oh, that's simple. But that isn't simple to do. That type of resilience, I think, showed itself throughout pretty much the whole entire game for Arsenal. So, yeah, Arsenal comes out on this one, although I think that Garnacho call, while it was, I guess, the right call based on VAR, it's just so tough.
It's hard to see VAR making those calls. I agree. And what I liked about it is to see two different styles of play. The Erik ten Hag patient game against the speed Arteta build-up play with the inverted fullbacks highly involved too. It was a clash of styles of play. And for football fanatics and analytics, I am sure they're going to dig deep on this one because there was a lot of duels that were very, very interesting, like a Saka Dalot. Dalot played quite well. But my interesting point is Rashford, when he plays at winger, clearly different, okay? He was a threat, a constant threat, and Rashford has 28 goals scored against the Big Six in the Premier League. He loves the big games. He's a clutch master, and please play Rasmus Højlund from the start in the next games for Man United. It was a clear difference, and if you see the Garnacho goal, it starts with a touch of Rasmus Højlund. He makes the difference. So let's see if Man United can get top 4, and Arsenal, I think, will. But it's still a discussion, okay, when you see Tottenham playing so good in other Premier League teams too. But don't forget to like this video and comment for more videos about Arsenal, United, Premier League topics. But yes, Breton, a lot happened in the Premier League, but Premier League clubs are involved in this competition. The biggest European competition. Champions League draw came out, and now we're going to do the FC Wonderkid Champions League predictions from Group A to Group H. And I'm expecting some bold takes, mate. I'm expecting some bold takes.
there will be some, but if you've got a drink handy or something, let's pour one out. Obviously, this is the last time we will be doing group predictions because it will be a whole new Champions League next season. And my goodness, are there some juicy groups in this one, and it's going to make me miss it all the while here. But you know what we can move on to in the future? We will have this type of Champions League format that will go into the wind and never be seen again in its format. We'll have it at the Club World Cup starting in 2025. So we can talk about that when it comes down the pike. But my goodness, these are mouth-watering. I guess, do you want to start at Group A, or do you want to just confuse people and go all over the place?
No, let's go Group A, okay? But while we're doing it, don't forget to comment your predictions for each group. I'd love to see it. And like this video for more videos just like this, okay, PP? We want to see your support in the comment section and in the like button. So Group A, an interesting one with Bayern Munich, Man United, Copenhagen, and Galatasaray. What do you think? Who's going to pass, Breton, in Group A?
Okay, who's going to pass? Okay, here we go. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not going to do it. I got Bayern. Sure, they left it late against Gladbach over the weekend. You got Matisse Tell chipping in an 87th minute goal. Great to see that because they're going to need it. But this particular group, I don't think is going to bother Bayern Munich. You've got Bayern Munich at the top for me. I was thinking about it, but I think Manchester United will get their act together. I think they will finish second here. I think Galatasaray will be a whole lot closer. And I was the one that said that they likely could be in for a big Champions League this particular season. I'm just not. I just can't do it yet. But Galatasaray in third, even though I think an Icardi and a Zaha could definitely surprise a United in second, but we'll see. And then I've got my favorite team actually out of the bunch in fourth. That's Copenhagen. Simply because they've got 3 18-year-olds you got to watch out for. 4, actually. One is playing less than the others. But you've got Rooney Bargi, who's actually has 17 going on 18. You've got Ori Oskarsson, the striker, and you've got the Højlund twins. Yes, the twin brothers of Rasmus Winter Højlund are currently in the process of breaking through for Copenhagen. So if you're looking for FC Wonderkid in Group A, that's where you'll find it. But they'll be fighting for third place likely to find their way to Europa League. So Bayern, Man United, Galatasaray, Copenhagen. That's my Group A.
So they find themselves in fourth place. Then I completely agree
Yeah.
with you, Bretson. Then Copenhagen will be the fourth place, and Bayern Munich first, and Man United second in this group. But let us know if you agree with us in this one. So Group B, a bit more interesting, I think, with the second and third, because a lot more can happen because we don't know. Europa League? Let's wait. So Group B has Arsenal, Sevilla, PSV, and Lens. So who'd you got passing in this group?
I think this is my first surprise. I have Arsenal winning it. I think full strength, whether it's full strength or it's depending on how long they're without Partey. I think the Urian Timber injury just really sucks for them because he looked like he already fit in. But I don't think it's going to bother the Gunners. I think they'll be at the top of Group B. But here's my surprise. My number 2 here is a team I think is very on the rise even after losing Xavi Simons. I believe PSV Eindhoven. I mean, Luke de Jong has got 7 goals already this season. They've got Johan Bakayoko breaking through. I thought he'd move before the end of the window, but he said, "No way. I'm not leaving. I think we can win the thing, and I think we can do really well in the Champions League, and I want to see it through." And I don't know why he doesn't get more love. I love Joey Veerman. I think I'm borderline obsessed with Joey Veerman. I'm actually surprised that Veerman did not move. So I'm picking PSV Eindhoven over Sevilla because Sevilla is doing what they did last year. They've started the La Liga season with 3 losses in a row, which I know probably virtually guarantees that they get to the Champions League final or something because they're so weird like that. But they lost to Valencia, Alaves, and they lost to Girona. So when it comes down to it, I don't know. I think PSV is going to take the step forward, and then Lens will be 4th place because they have not properly replaced Openda and Seko Fofana, in my opinion.
Okay, I agree with you. Arsenal finally back in the Champions League, and we both agree that Arsenal will be topping this group. I would love to go with PSV for Johan Bakayoko, but Sevilla are the specialists in... Well, Champions League, no. We're Europa League, so they might end 3rd, but I'm going to go with them 2nd in this one. But you went bold, mate. You went bold because, yes, PSV could surprise a lot of people, and I have Lens at 4th. So Group C. Group C is an interesting one with a Portuguese team that, yes, they did it. Braga beat Panathinaikos in the playoffs, and Group C has Napoli, Real Madrid, Braga, and Union Berlin. It's absolutely mad to think that Real Madrid are going to be the Pedreira in the stadium of Braga, okay? It's going to be mad and a great experience for all the Braga team. And it's good for Portuguese football too. I believe in Group C, Real Madrid will be topping with a Jude Bellingham masterclass consistently, as it seems to happen. Napoli 2nd with Osimhen highly involved. And I think Braga will get 3rd, even though Union Berlin is a great team. I think Braga will be getting Europa League. I'm showing my bias here, but Borola Bruma, Ricardo Horta, a lot of talent at Braga. Even Moutinho just landed.
Leipzig carved Union Berlin open, but they were a man down. But
Xavi Simons scored before. I watched that one.
Xavi Simons, that's true. That you're right. And Xavi Simons already a great signing. We'll talk about those later.
Yes.
But I'm with you. I'm mildly concerned. I don't think anyone in Group C is going to threaten Real Madrid, even though Real Madrid has Eder Militao out, even though they have Thibaut Courtois out. They got Vinicius Jr. out for a little while. But I'm not worried. And to be honest, I think there's a person here that maybe not in the groups, but in the knockout stages could turn themselves into hero status, and that would be the likes of Kepa. If he winds up being the guy, he's not going to do Courtois things. But my goodness, if he got back to what made him the most expensive goalkeeper in the world, form-wise, wouldn't that be nice for Real Madrid? But I don't think Napoli's going to come close. So I have them a distant 2nd, Napoli. And I'm a little worried about maybe defenses are starting to figure out Kvaratskhelia. But doesn't really matter when you got Victor Osimhen, who at times is unmarkable. So I got Napoli in 2nd, and then I'm going to flip it here. I know just because I love the story behind Union Berlin, I'm going to say Union Berlin goes 3rd because of their stout defense. And just a reminder that Union Berlin got back to the Bundesliga only 4 years ago, and they're now in the Champions League. They've been the breakout team in the Bundesliga for 2 consecutive seasons, maybe even 3 consecutive seasons, and they've been punching well above their analytics. So whether or not that luck runs out doesn't matter. They're in the Champions League, and I think just being in the Champions League is huge for them. But I've got them pipping Braga for third.
I completely agree. Union Berlin is a team that surprised me a lot these past seasons.
Yeah.
And just touching on what you said, Kvaratskhelia has only scored 2 goals since March in Serie A. It's not looking too good. And I remember people clearly saying with confidence that Kvaratskhelia was better than Rafael Leão. And it doesn't seem to be the case. Even Chiesa is starting the Serie A season better than Kvaratskhelia right now. So let's see what's going to happen. And Osimhen, watching that game with Lazio, it was worrying. Sarri had him figured out, okay? He didn't score any goals. I think he didn't even have a shot on target, too. So let's wait and see. But I believe 2, 1 in second, Napoli. For 1 Real, second Napoli. Okay, Group D with another Portuguese team. Group D with Benfica, Inter, Red Bull Salzburg, and Real Sociedad. This is a difficult group to predict, but I'm going to say this, Breton. I believe that Benfica are going to end up first with Inter in that were Champions League finalists, but I still believe that Benfica will have revenge on their mind, and they'll be playing better football in October and November. Okay, I believe in Benfica. Let's go.
With Frederick Orsnes playing left back, right back, defensive mid, striker, goalkeeper. What position is he going to play? I know he had a hell of a game over the weekend. I saw enough of that, and great to see him. Well, I'm glad you were able to do that because I actually had that for a little while. And I kind of like how Inter has started the season. I'm more impressed that they have held on to their core. Bastoni and Barella and Lautaro. And Thuram has been decent so far, so they've started pretty hot. And I like they've replaced the experience with more experience in the form of Alexis Sanchez, Arnautovic, Cuadrado. So I do have Inter Milan finishing top here, but I do think it's going to be insanely close, and I agree with you. I think Benfica could definitely pull off what they did last season. They were in the group of death last season, and they finished top of it.
Benfica had Juve and PSG and Maccabi Haifa, and they managed to score 6 goals to top the group. PSG thought they would end up first, but they worked themselves to go into that first place, which PSG then got knocked out.
And this is like a baby group of death for me. It's not the group of death, but Group D is like a baby group of death because RB Salzburg is always a wild card. And it's that next man up mentality. They sell off. Hell, we just saw Sesko score his first 2 Bundesliga goals for Leipzig after taking the step up from Salzburg. But listen, now they've got Roko Simic scoring his first brace this season. You've got Karim Konate, who I think will be their next massive lottery ticket out. He will be.
I believe in Roko big time too, Brett, and I think both will be big for the Champions League at Salzburg because they play with double striker.
Right, and that's the thing is that I believe that they always keep these teams guessing. Now, with that said, they made history. I think Aronson was on the team when they did make history, but they made only the knockout stage once, but they always make it relatively interesting. So Salzburg, while I don't think they're going to threaten Benfica in my predictions for second or Inter for first, I do think that they will pip out Real Sociedad for third and the Europa League. But guys like Konate and Simic are going to make me watch, but there are other guys. Umar Soleil has started really hot this season. Samson Baidu, if you don't know the name, you will after this Champions League campaign. And you have to think about this for Salzburg. This is almost like their how much is that doggy in the window? Right? It's them putting their best talents on display, and it's their next step up because ultimately 2 or 3 of these guys from this squad, Baidu in particular, in my opinion, Lucas Gorna-Duath, their defensive mid, Amar Dedic, and either one of the strikers between Konate and Simic could be on their way out. So and that doesn't even take in Kjærgaard into consideration.
Agree.
So FC Wonder Kid of Group D is Salzburg, but watch out for Sociedad. Takafusu Kubo is hot to start the season, and Arsene Zakarian is a new signing that I would definitely be watching out for, but I still have them in fourth.
Completely agreed. Completely agree with a lot you said. And Di Maria, too, could become the all-time assister in Champions League history in this campaign. He's got 38 assists, and if he gets 4, he will be equal to Cristiano Ronaldo with 42. So let's wait and see if that is going to happen. So Group E has Feyenoord, Atletico de Madrid, Lazio, and Celtic. Look, a lot of surprises can happen. I have in Group E, Atletico de Madrid topping it. But look, if Lazio gets second, if Celtic gets second, if Arne Slot's Feyenoord gets second, I'm honestly not surprised. So this is an underrated group of death in my eyes. So watch out for Celtic at home. I believe that's going to be a very tough ground. And I'm going to believe, it's bold, that Celtic... I'm not going to say, man, it's Feyenoord or Celtic, man. It's Feyenoord. But I'll go Atletico first, and I'll go Feyenoord second with Arne Slot football with Santiago Jimenez at forward. I believe a lot in this style of play, and what Matthias Wiefer and Gertruide, Igor Paixão, they have a lot of players that have stayed. I'm going both with Feyenoord.
They do. Okay. And Jimenez, I think, he's got 5 goals in his last 3 games against... okay, Eredivisie talent, but still, you got to put the balls in the back of the net. You know what's crazy here is I have Atletico Madrid at the top of Group A, and the biggest reason I have is probably because of a lot of the transfer hangover, or the transfer drama hangover, whether it's around João Félix moving on, which we'll talk about later, but a lot of that has been put in the rear view, and already this season. Depay, I think he's already got a couple goals. Alvaro Morata already has 3 goals this season, which is whatever. If they can actually get solid returns from them, I think Atleti will be at the top here. But I am definitely going to go big, and I'm going to say it's going to be Feyenoord in second. Mats Wiefer, they kept Hanko, they kept Geertruida, they kept Jimenez. So even with losing Koksu, I think that they will gel, get better. But the only thing I don't like about it is that the additions to their squad have not been as strong, but they have kept a large enough core that I think they can beat a Lazio that before their win over Napoli, I believe they lost 2 matches to Genoa and Lecce.
Yes.
How do you say it? The Lecce. So Sarri is, had a sorry start to the season, and he might have just bought himself some more time with that pretty uncharacteristic win over Osimhen and Napoli. So I'm going to say it here. If Lazio finishes third, like I'm predicting them to, I do have them as a pretty big favorite to win the Europa League, unless Liverpool has something to say
I don't have them
about that.
To win the Europa League, even though you have Brighton, you have West Ham, you have Roma. Roma is, I still think it would be difficult, but I agree that Sarri is the variable that makes Lazio tick, and Luis Alberto there. Immobile is not as big, but yes, the biggest player that left is Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. So seeing a team of Lazio without him is going to be very interesting. So tell us down below what you believe about Group E. Yes, Bretzen.
Yeah. Last thing about that is I'm just surprised, Celtic brought in Paulo Bernardo, which I like, but I was starting to look at all their transfer history this particular offseason, this summer, and my goodness, they brought in 8 players under the age of 23. 8 players. And the majority of them, I think quite a few of us don't know a lot about. I mean, even Luis Palma, who I do know because he's CONCACAF, he's Honduran, he scored a bunch of goals in the Greek Super League. But it feels like Big Ange is actually still in charge of Celtic, because bringing in these no names from kind of elsewhere. It's going to be really interesting to see how they all gel. But you know what? They won the Old Firm recently. I think their atmosphere gives them that 12th man. I can't wait for Feyenoord Celtic, because those are 2 ridiculously rabid fan bases. That's going to definitely win the day for atmosphere when it comes down to it.
That's true. And Group F now. Group F with PSG, Dortmund, AC Milan, and Newcastle. And this is the group of death. It's the difficult group to predict the second place. But the first, it has to be PSG. PSG made mad transfers this season. And if they don't, end up in first with Mbappe staying, I don't know what should happen at PSG. Okay, so PSG, I got them first. And I have AC Milan second. I love what they did in the transfer window. Even though I think St. James's Park is going to be a very difficult away fixture for Milan, I still have Milan second because they did go bold in the Champions League in the past year. And it's so interesting. It's so interesting that, remember, like, when everyone was saying Mbappe was going to Newcastle, well, he is going to Newcastle after the takeover, but as an opposition player, okay, playing for PSG. But it's mad to think that Newcastle, in the space of like 20 months, they're in the Champions League and they got top 4 in the Premier League. So congratulations, and learn from this experience with Bruno, with Tonali. They can surprise. Newcastle can get 9 points at home. They can in the Champions League. So it will be an interesting game. Very interesting.
I agree. It's gonna be all down to whether or not Alexander Isak can take another step up and score goals in the Champions League, right? Against these types of opponents, AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, and PSG. So I that's why I got Newcastle. Oh goodness, I have them in third. And I've got Borussia Dortmund in fourth. Oof. And believe it or not, this is going to be my crazy one. I'm gonna throw out there that I think AC Milan is going to gel faster than PSG, even though PSG has Kylian Mbappe. But I'm going to say AC Milan at the top, PSG in second. So I think that's a bold take, but one that if we've watched them early this season, they still have improvement to the Rossoneri still have improvement to make. But I really think that they can make it. Only injuries are in their way. I mean, hell, Tomori doesn't look his best. A lot of people don't look their best in that roster. They're still winning games.
You got two bold takes, mate. You got AC Milan ahead of PSG, and you have Newcastle ahead of Dortmund. That's takes.
You know, listen, Dortmund, I don't like this. They're getting away from the transfer policy, in my opinion, that made them so dangerous and so exciting to watch all those years. Now, 70,000 plus are still going to show up at the Signal Iduna. Exactly. That's not going to change that, right? So yes, from an atmosphere perspective, again, this is like A+ for atmosphere all across the board. But Dortmund, for me, I think maybe this is more me like trying to get back at them in some respects, and they're not listening. But like, come on, they did nothing, in my opinion, to actually replace Jude Bellingham. Right. And they're still riding the same horses that they brought in several seasons ago, whether it's Karim Adeyemi and Daniel Malen and Youssoufa Moukoko. We are waiting for one of them to take the next step up, and it has not happened just yet. And their transfer window means that they definitely have faith that these guys are going to do it. So I will happily eat crow. What I love about this, though, is Christian Pulisic going back to Signal Iduna, going back to Dortmund, to where he made his debut, to the team that essentially shaped him. So I love those types of storylines that are all across the board.
And Tonali back to Milan. That is a mad one too. After the Newcastle bought him for 17 million too. But let us know until now your predictions of all the groups down below. Go bold, people. Okay, in this video, Group G. I think this is the easiest group to predict. Man City have the easiest group in terms of opposition, in my opinion. They literally Haaland scored 5 goals last Champions League against Leipzig in the knockout stages. So Man City first. I think Leipzig will be second. I have I've got Young Boys third, and I've got Red Star fourth. Trust the Switzerland.
Yeah. The only reason I would put Young Boys below Red Star fourth, in the group is because they just sold their best player, and Fabian Reeder sold him to Stade Rennais. So I'm a little bummed about that, but I think they are good enough to get above a team that has not won a group stage game in 4 years. Red Star Belgrade, we'll see. And they haven't made it out of a group stage in 20 plus years, or maybe even 30 plus years. But listen, you're right. It's the easiest one. Manchester City should actually be able to rotate through this. And RB Leipzig is saying, and RB Leipzig is like, what do we do to deserve this? I mean, are we going to see another 7-0 loss? Are we going to see another 6-3 loss on the horizon? And maybe they'll try something different this time around. But that was with Nkunku. That was with Gvardiol. That was with Szoboszlai. So what's it going to be like without them?
Erling Haaland has the chance with Leipzig, Red Star, and Young Boys to absolutely break the record of Champions League scored in one campaign of Cristiano Ronaldo. So let's see if he goes bold in those 6 matches. It can happen. And let's not forget that Man City were unbeaten in the last Champions League campaign. With this group, that's a pretty positive start for then the knockout stages, that they will be favorites to win it again.
But sir, so was Bayern. Right? They were 6-0, right?
It's
6-0.
true. It's true. I get you. It's true. So was Bayern,
and it hurt him. Hurt him in the end.
But I still think this transfer window, which we're going to talk more ahead, was elite by Man City. So here, the last group, the group that, look, I think it's easy to predict too, because the 1 and 2 is Group H with Barcelona, Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Royal Antwerp. Royal Antwerp, please pay special attention to Arthur Vermaelen, this center mid that is absolutely brilliant and the future of his country, Belgium. Okay, so pay attention to this lad of Royal Antwerp. So, Breton, who do you have here?
Well, I've got Barcelona at top. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but I do think it should be relatively comfortable here. Yes. Although obviously Porto has kept Taremi for now, and they've got kind of a new midfield. I mean, Otavio left for the Saudi Pro League, but it's going to be interesting to see Nico Gonzalez go back against the club that essentially made him. 21-year-old La Masia product will get his shot at going back to Camp Nou and seeing if he can disrupt some things, or it's going to be really interesting. But very simply put, I think, like you, I've got Barcelona at the top. I've got Porto in second. I've got Royal Antwerp, 66 years in the waiting to get back to a European competition. And I will not rule them out, because as a team, they're very, very solid. They've got guys like Jella Bataille. They also have Soumaila Koulibaly. And I got that name right. Koulibaly, who they plucked from the Dortmund Youth Academy. Dortmund wasn't going to use him, so they brought him over, and he's been starting like crazy for him, and actually to relatively rave reviews. So as you said with Vermeeren, they have some of the most intriguing players to watch for next season's big buys, or the season after that's big buys. And then Shakhtar, who obviously you want to see do well based on what types of hurdles they are jumping over with the war still going on there. And they've been mostly a selling team. But I've got Royal Antwerp in third. And
that was tough. There was tough losses in that one. I completely agree with you, Breton. So we both have Barcelona topping the group. We have Porto second. And we have Shakhtar third?
Nope, Antwerp.
Antwerp third. The Belgium winners. And they did pretty good to deserve that. Which that last day was unreal. Just to see the live score, I couldn't keep up. But people, let us know, what are you thinking about the Champions League predictions? Who do you have topping the groups? And do you agree with all the predictions that we said? Let us know in the comment section, and don't forget to like this video. But we're FC Wonder Kid. We're FC Wonder Kid podcast, and this transfer window was absolutely brilliant. And we have 5 players each, or we're going to refer more, maybe 10, maybe 12. We're going to just talk about the favorite moves, okay, that we've seen in this transfer window of under 23 ballers, because some big historic moves were done. And I'm gonna take I know I'm wearing a Barca jersey, and I'm gonna talk about Barca. Don't worry. But I have to say, this historic move that we have to start is Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham, even though Real Madrid don't have Vinicius, don't have Militão, they don't have Courtois, they don't have Arda Güler, they have Jude Bellingham. That in 4 games, 5 goals, 1 assist. He's the only player next to Cristiano Ronaldo to score in each of his first four La Liga starts. Jude Bellingham. That's the significance and the historic value that he's having. And you can clearly see, and I agree with Toni Kroos. Toni Kroos tweeted, Toni Kroos said this online. He said, Jude Bellingham is a top 3 player in the world right now. Toni Kroos went bold, and look, how can you disagree if you're watching Real Madrid in the Bernabeu? First match in this new stadium, scoring in the 95th minute in bold fashion. How can you disagree with Toni Kroos that he's a top 3 player in the world right now? doing it as a Galactico with iconic celebrations too. Jude Bellingham, keep going bold.
Yep. And he even said he was almost brought to tears listening to them chant his name. And the 95th minute is just winner is just the icing on the cake of what has been a ridiculously historic start to time at Real Madrid, which, to be honest, I think has surprised everybody. I mean,
I agree.
We all know what he's made of, and he's shown it time and time again with his time at Dortmund. But to just step up and embrace the pressure, it makes all of the other ones. I mean, this kid is barely he's 20.
He's 20.
Right?
Just turned 20.
20.
Just turned 20. And the way he leveled up and he elevated himself towards becoming a Galactico in the first month he's there. Like, how is that possible? Like, honestly,
it's not normal.
It's shocking. Shocking. Made in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So we agree that's the number one right now. Okay.
Yeah.
With the number two, I'm going to hear, if you're hearing the podcast, we were talking about Man City big. And I know I don't have Gvardiol as my, second best center back right now in the world. But Joško Gvardiol is one of the best center backs in the world. And the fact that City have him next to Ruben Dias, next to Hake, next to John Stones, so many options. And City, they just do this. And Gvardiol will be one of the best defenders in the Premier League. And he's just arrived. City have Foden, have Rico Lewis, have Oscar Bob, all playing this season. And they have sold James Trafford, Cole Palmer, Carlos Borges for more than 75 million. City want present and future talents, and players like Gvardiol, Haaland, Alvarez, Doku are all just that. The standard that Guardiola demands, and he only wants world-class potential. Just wanted to say that.
Well, ranking these on quality has been hard, but Gvardiol's pretty easy to put at number 2 simply because Manchester City knew the target, went after the target, paid what they thought they needed to pay. I mean, it's a sign of a very quality club, also a quality company, when they already have their plans set out and their business done relatively early, right, in the transfer window. And that was Manchester City. I mean, they don't. You could argue they didn't necessarily need Gvardiol, but my goodness, it's a luxury to have him.
Well,
so yeah, I get. I knew you were going to pick him too for the most part. And my rankings are really off here. It's more like ones I've enjoyed. So my number 2 is
purely what we
like.
Bretton. Yeah.
And I think you're gonna like this one because my number 2 is Manuel Ugarte for PSG. Another one done early. He's one of the first transfer targets that they had, even while the whole crazy Neymar, Messi divorce, potentially Mbappe divorce was going under. They knew that there was another era coming down the pike, and one of the biggest that they wanted to sign after the free transfer captures of Skriniar, who is it, Lucas Hernandez, and
Asensio,
Kang and Lee, yes. But out of this, they needed somebody that was not going to necessarily ask for the limelight, that was going to literally give everything, to literally rule that midfield, and that's who Ugarte is. He's not going to be the one that wants his name in the limelight. He's not going to be the one that wants the attention. He's going to be the guy that ushers in a new, maybe lesser superstar era for PSG. And who knows? Maybe it brings a different type of fan to PSG. But Ugarte was one of, I think, 11 captures in this transfer window. And to be honest, I think he's one of the most consequential ones because he is going to have to be huge for them as they gel up front. I mean, Mbappe's got all his boys up there now. Mbappe's got Dembele. He's got, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Ugarte is going to be the lifeblood of that midfield moving forward. And I think you agree with that, right?
Completely agree with that one. Completely agree. That move is a game-changing move for PSG in terms of defensive mid. That they've never been so well in the last 3 years, in my point of view, with now defensive mid. And we're going to talk more about what they're going to play in midfield because, yes, I do think they had a good transfer window with Luis Enrique. Okay, so here, another shout. I have to say, João Félix, is definitely one of the best moves in this transfer window because, look, people need to understand João Félix at Barcelona has the potential to be in his prime straight off the bat, okay? He's happy, and João Félix, there's sacrifice, not just from Juan Laporta, but sacrifice from himself too to be in this team, okay? Reportedly, I don't know if it's true, but they're saying he's going to earn 400,000 in a year. I don't know if it's true, but Félix is choosing passion over money by going to Barcelona. And for Portuguese men to see Cancelo and Félix there, I'm hyped up. And he's going to be the Félix that we expected to see leaving Benfica. João Félix masterclass incoming. And please, look, I had a tear dropping too. And to see tears when he's announced as Barca player too, it's just understanding because, yes, he was being held hostage in a style of play that wasn't good. And even seeing him doing the run at the end after the 90th minute. Look, with the fans all booing him. Of course they're booing him. It's like torture to see that Simeone did that to a player like Félix, that he didn't deserve that. So he's one of my top under 23 transfers. But we'll talk more about Barca.
Yeah, the dude just wants to play ball.
Exactly.
And I hope it's as big as you say it is. And I actually agree with you. And you'll see when we talk about the transfer windows in a little bit. But my number three's maybe not as high profile, but my goodness, his profile skyrocketed relatively recently, and that's Victor Boniface at Bayer Leverkusen.
I had him 3-2.
You do? I mean, you can't ask for a better start, and a lot of this is a product of Xabi ball.
Yes.
But it's also a product of the insane talent around him and a midfield that, man, God, I hope Ezekiel Palacios and Xhaka remain injury-free the whole season, because Palacios, out of all, deserves it, but it frees these guys. They're without Moussa Diaby, right? But it frees Florian Wirtz up. It frees a lot of these really good attacking talents to basically serve the ball on a platter to Victor Boniface. And Boniface has 5 goals, 2 assists in his first 4 games. He's only played 340 minutes in them, so he didn't start in that. And I just think he's only going to get better and more dominant for them. So it's just insane to me that there was not more of a fight over Victor Boniface. They got him for 20.
Agree. I completely agree. Victor Boniface, striker, is one of the best buys in this transfer window, not just under 23. I completely agree with you. And I think Boniface will finish top 3 Bundesliga striker, okay? At the end of this season, he'll be considered one. But Bayer Leverkusen are balling out. And Victor Boniface got called up, too, for the Super Eagles, Nigeria, next to Gift Orban, too, which is fantastic to see them, too, getting recognized. It's fucked.
Sure.
But, yes, I had him, too, Breton. I had
go.
Victor Boniface, too. Yes. So who'd you have next? I'm sorry, Breton. I wasn't expecting that.
No, that's
one.
okay. That's okay. Hey, you know what? We killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm gonna say number 4. I'm gonna go with my gut here. Okay. This one intrigued me because I thought he was headed elsewhere. In fact, I thought he was headed for Brighton, but Mohamed Kudus, in fact, is headed to West Ham.
He's not 24?
And it was. Did he just turn? Well, let's pretend he's 23 for today, if that's the case. I think he's still 23, though. I might be wrong, but listen, we've been following Kudus since his FC Nordjylland days, right? Since he broke through.
Sorry.
Okay, good. No, but we've been following him. He's a game changer. He's absolutely huge for a West Ham team that needs him. I mean, I feel like Brighton's chock full of him right now with Matoma, and we'll talk about the other one that just landed at Brighton in a little while. But Mohamed Kudus at West Ham, it's just such great business for them. Not only that, they pilfered Ajax, West Ham did, for Mohamed Kudus and Edson Alvarez, right?
True.
With some of their Declan Rice money. But Kudus, the game changer, has been since his days at FC Nordjylland. I wouldn't say he took a step back at Ajax, but like he was injured and he never really got fully going for them. But when he was healthy, my goodness, was he productive for them. So Kudus at West Ham is exactly what West Ham needs to ensure that a season like last season, which was so Jekyll and Hyde, doesn't happen again. And I think that they're on the right. Let's just say it. West Ham, it was not the place that any of us expected Mohamed Kudus to go,
I
right?
completely
You'll agree with me.
I thought
Okay.
Brighton were going to get him. And to see how they're investing that Declan Rice money, they're one of the best teams making moves this transfer window that we were going to be mentioning just in a bit. I'm going to mention my last two. I'm going to mention my last two, and I'm going to dedicate them to Portugal. Because Portugal, I think, elite moves were done by the three big teams. By the four, actually, if we include Braga. But I want to highlight Fresneda. Ivan Fresneda just signed for Sporting, right back. Pay attention to him. Left Real Valladolid. A lot of Barca fans expected to see him at Barca. But look, Sporting got him, and now I believe that Fresneda and Nuno Santos will be the best fullback duo in Portugal. I believe Ba is an elite right back, but look at the left back. Jurasek could be doing better. So pay attention to Nuno Santos with Fresneda next season at Sporting. That would be my shouts. And my last one is Kokshu. Orkun Kokshu, he played really, really well against Vitória yesterday, and I was pretty surprised how he did. And he's improving, okay? He's improving, developing. The more games are passing, the adaptability, you can see it. And playing next to João, that was pretty special. So Orkun Kokshu, 25 million spent. Number 10, pay attention to him at Benfica.
I like it. Well, I'll go back to the Premier League. I'll be very honest. I did not expect him to get this locked in this early on, but Dominic Szoboszlai at Liverpool, he looks good. I don't really think there's anything else that needs to be said. I gotta say, and I might be wrong. I might be wrong tactically about this, but for some reason, what Szoboszlai does, I feel like it takes something off the shoulders of that front three to just have to always be on, right? And they were on in this game over the weekend. But listen, Szoboszlai also gives you another dead ball threat, and I think he's only going to grow into his role. And we've seen it previously with Hungary. More importantly, Minnow fighting the big ones of UEFA. Dominic Szoboszlai is capable of taking the pressure, putting it on his shoulders, and getting better because of it. So I think he's just starting there. And it's been a seamless move. And I think he's also going to make the Darwin Núñez, the Diaz, the Diogo Jota, and Mo Salah too. They're going to make them even better. And more playing like themselves all the time, not doing too much. So I really, really like this signing for Liverpool. And it was really hard to pick because there were so many U23s moving clubs. There's so many we haven't talked about.
Judoku, there's many that we haven't talked. Even
Xavi Simons. Yep.
Xavi Simons that goes to PSG for 6 million and then on loan.
No Caicedo though. No Caicedo.
No Caicedo. But people, let us know if you have Caicedo in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like this video for more videos just like this. Here, last topic here in the podcast. We had to go bold here because it was the summer transfer window and it was an extremely special one. So here, the best teams in this summer transfer window, FC Wonderkid thoughts right here. I'm wearing the jersey. I gotta talk about them. And I believe, Breton, Barca went bold in this transfer window. Barca,
they did.
This is the least amount spent, okay? This is the least amount spent in a summer since 2005, okay? And inflation has happened. Juan Laporta did this transfer window with Barca, and they signed João Félix on loan. They got João Cancelo, Oriol Romeu for 5 million. The only transfer that cost them money. Then they got Inigo Martinez and Gundogan. They cost them money for the transfer fee. All of them cost them money, okay, people? But to see Gundogan in the Barca jersey, to see João Félix now in the Barca jersey, and to see Cancelo that Cancelo and Balde has the potential this season already to be the best fullback duo in the Champions League. They have the potential to be that. If Cancelo gets that form, that I believe it will happen, go bold with Xavi. And La Liga, I think now Barca, with these transfers, they're favorites to win La Liga. People don't understand how ridiculous João Félix is going to be. I am very, very optimistic with that because he's just seeing it with the sacrifice, with the intention, and with the purpose that he has to succeed. If Félix doesn't succeed at Barca, he can't get 100 million one day in Saudi Arabia for one season. Okay? That's the guy. That's the world-class status he wants to get. And he will get it, I believe, at Barca.
Yeah, and I think they were the second smallest net spend out of all the La Liga clubs.
Ooh.
And there were only, I think, two La Liga clubs that even spent beyond double digits, and we know one of them was Real Madrid.
Facts.
The other, I think, was like, Betis or Sociedad or something like that. But yeah, I believe it or not, I got Barcelona in here too. I mean, Barcelona. I said it before. I'm a financial stickler. What we used to get in fights about were all the different levers
They
and
had
this
to
and
do
that,
that.
and
They had to.
and yeah, I understand. But they've also been punched in the mouth multiple times, thinking that they were going to get investment, and only to have that money not actually get paid. So for them to still pull off a window where they are definitely on paper much better team than they were at the beginning of the window, and to do it with this type of net spend, yeah, I agree. This goes all back to Laporta. It goes back to the draw of Xavi, and I'm here for it, man. I just hope that with that Cancelo Balde flanks, I hope Renault can stay as healthy can be the majority of the season. But ultimately, dude, I mean,
And
they're
Lamine
most.
Yamal.
Yeah, Lamine Yamal's, and that's the thing here, right? This is like reverse Chelsea. They have the young guys. They have developed the young guys. They have still sold off, probably for cheap, too cheap, in my opinion. They have sold off the guys that likely won't get the minutes. But they have the guys, and they're giving the chances. Lamine Yamal was just called up by La Furia Rioja, right?
True.
By the Spanish national team. And he, when he does play, very likely will become the youngest ever to play in Spanish history. And to be honest, he's replacing Gavi to do that. And they know that they can bring in guys like Gundogan. They can bring guys like Cancelo. They can bring guys like Oriol Romeo, who's more of a role player, and Inigo Martinez, who's more of a role player. They can do that because they have that youthful exuberance. They got the game changers developing under their wings. And Lewandowski's lending a hand too. He's going to be happy to have maybe a little more support. But like the craziest transfer from a monetary perspective that they made was like Noah Darvish. You know, one of the great young little German youth internationals that may or may not amount to nothing. So I love this window from Barcelona. I know you don't hear me say that often, but I do. I do love it.
And Gavi has his 100th game, this weekend. Gavi has played 100 games for Barca at the age of 19. So seeing the amounts of youth, Ronaldo Araújo, Alejandro Balde, Pedri, Lamine Yamal now. Like, even Frenkie de Jong, he's not old. He's young. And to get Félix with a striker ahead of him of Lewandowski, get ready, people. He's going to be feeding the beast, okay? This is going to be a very different Barca team. But leading up, so with a different club that, look, this club is honestly a testament to A-level. Every transfer window. And I'm happy, because I'm wearing the Barca jersey, that Ansu Fati is now on loan to Brighton. The best team for him to develop, okay? In the Premier League, with De Zerbi, with Mitoma. It is so interesting now. And Brighton, boy oh boy, please bring us back a world-class potential player that we saw at the beginning of his career at Barca. That's what's needed. And I'm not going to be going against the belief of that happening when De Zerbi is coaching. So Brighton is my big highlight, because they got 187 million in sales this summer with immediate transfer income, and they still have Mitoma, Bart Verbruggen, Estupinian, Gilmore, Enciso, and Evan Ferguson scoring hat-tricks that literally will be sold for more than £100 million next transfer window if he continues. So Brighton, keep going bold.
That Billy Gilmore that was not good enough for Chelsea. They could not find the playing time for Chelsea. No, it's wonderful to see him actually get his just dues. But listen, Carlos Baleba, Baleba is one we all got to be watching, because he was great. We haven't seen him too much with Lille. But we know Brighton's done their homework, and that is the difference, Alex. That is the difference between Brighton's transfer window and then say Chelsea. Don't excuse just signing players for action, right? There's action, and then there's really concentrated action. There's Brighton knowing why they're signing these players. They're not panicking. They still have a net positive of almost 100 million plus
Oh.
over the last 5 years, even with all the different players they've brought in because they have a system. But that Ansu Fati deal, that would not have gotten done if it was anyone other than Roberto De Zerbi.
Fuck.
Okay, it wouldn't have.
Huge
it
factor.
Wouldn't have. So, yeah, absolutely a huge factor. And I don't even have Brighton here because I was hoping you would speak about them and I could kind of piggyback on it because you know who I want to actually focus on in the Premier League? And I'm sorry, I don't even really have a ranking here, but I want to focus on West Ham United.
Yes.
I kind of alluded to this earlier.
No, it's
Listen,
true.
West Ham United had 2 great seasons before last season. And then to save last season, they won the Conference League, and that's why they're in the Europa League this season. So if you forget that even happened, and you look at what they're doing so far to start the year with 3 wins and 1 tie, 1 draw, sorry, my American just came out. And you look at what they're doing, and you look at the players that they were able to bring in after Declan Rice left. Now, they had time to prepare for this because they knew likely Declan Rice was going. It's just a matter of how much. But the fact that they were also able to unload Scamacca, who was already scored in Serie A, and bring in guys that, again, make them instantly better, like James Ward-Prowse, Mohamed Kudus, and Edson Alvarez, I think they're better off than when they had Declan Rice. And that's not just in these four fixtures to start the year. I really do think this is a better team moving forward when you marry it to the fact that Jared Bowen, Souček, some of the guys that flagged a little bit last year and had some of their worst years, they're back to playing very respectable football under David Moyes. Moyes is not going to give you the prettiest style of play, but if he can maybe teach an old dog a new trick. If we can teach Moyes a new trick and inject the Kudus and keep a Paqueta happy in there, West Ham does have the ability, I've said it casually over the last week or two, they have the ability to actually improve upon an 8th place, 7th place finish. They could be the team that we thought might be Villa this season. I'm actually going to say it now because I really, really do like their bones. I think they need to do a little more work in the winter, and they have a glaring hole at striker.
Exactly.
They need depth for Antonio. So it's just, to be honest, they were focused. I'm not going to talk about at all, you'll see this, I'm not going to talk about Manchester City. I'm not going to talk about Arsenal. I'm going to, mainly because they were so targeted in what they did. They knew that they had a plan. Yes, Arsenal have gotten a bad roll of the dice with Timber's injury.
That was
but
unlucky.
I'm not going to talk about them because they were smart. Those are great, great signings. I'd expect no less from first and second in the transfer window. But for West Ham to lose one of their biggest players of recent years and to go out and have a really good window, I think that they deserve more credit for what they did. They saved it for late, but they got it done, and that's important.
I agree with you, but I don't give them a 5-star rating because they have known that with Moyes, they have this striker issue too. And if they have signed Scamacca in the past, it's because they've realized it. And Danny Ings is the substitute for Antonio, and that is an issue in my opinion, especially when they play Europa League football too. They're gonna be. I know they had Conference League last season, but like Europa League football's still there. But I agree, new midfield, they're looking better. Another team that I think is underrated that I have to mention here, it's Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen this season have 4 wins in 4 games. They have 19 goals scored and only 3 suffered. Despite selling Moussa Diaby, I can state confidently that they're a much better team this season. Bayer Leverkusen, I think, will be finishing top 3 because they will have a Florian Wirtz, a Boniface, a Hincapie, a Hadam Ozek, and the signings of experience of Hoffman and Xhaka with Xabi Alonso leading away too. Do not sleep for them in the Europa League too, and watch out for what they're doing because this is just ridiculous. I forgot to say, I think Leverkusen have with talents. They have leading talents in their position for the future. I think Frimpong is one of the best right back talents in the world. I think Wirtz is one of the best cam talents in the world, attacking midfielders in the world. I think Boniface is one of the best young strikers in the world. And Hincapie and Kosonu, they've got potential. Look, they have potential. So Leverkusen, pay a lot of attention to them because they might be the new Dortmund. I didn't say it.
No. I actually agree. I've paid more attention to them than I have Dortmund relatively recently. But They threw a real screwball one in there.
Mm.
At the end of the window, they signed Nathan Tella
From
from
Southampton, yes.
Southampton,
To
who
20,
scored some,
right?
yeah. And I was not expecting that at all. But my guess is Xavi wanted him, and he'll probably do wonders for him. I think their biggest coup this season was actually holding on to Frimpong. I
Yeah.
100% thought Jeremy Frimpong was on his way out the door, but I'm happy to see that he wasn't, because I think Xabi's got draw, and he's holding these guys there, showing them that he's got something to offer them, that they might have a chance. I don't know about unseating Bayern, but definitely second place is where I got them in my preseason. So yeah, no, great shout. My last transfer window is got to be PSG. I mentioned this previously with Manu Ugarte coming in, but that's not the only thing. Craziest thing that they had to do was they had to consolidate around one ego, right? Kylian Mbappe, Messi's gone, Neymar's gone for 90 million to Saudi Arabia, and what it comes down to is you got to make Mbappe happy, even if it's one more season that you've got him. And boy, did they do that. Completely new strike force. You got 95 or 80 million base spent on Kolo Muani, a Les Bleus teammate. You've got Bradley Barcola coming in. You've got Ousmane Dembele. You've got Lucas Hernandez. You've got even little younger guys, right? Not little guys, but
Kang In
guys
Lee,
that
yeah.
are going to try and actually just siphon off as much as they can get from Mbappe, like Kang and Lee, and Cher Nador. But you've got very shrewd signings like Marco Asensio and Milan Skriniar. So PSG has done everything to kind of not only make Mbappe's potentially last year as big as possible, but to also set themselves up for the future without him.
With Luis Enrique.
I do.
I agree.
Yeah, Luis Enrique is the big pull here, right? Because I don't think that type of window is happening under a guy that I liked previously for his time at Lille. We don't need to talk about him. But this is Luis Enrique's team. This is Luis Enrique's team, and everyone here has got his go-ahead. I think the only wild card is going to be the young signing from Lyon. What a guy like Bradley Barcola can actually bring to the team. I'm a little surprised PSG spent as much as they did on a player after a very small amount of time. He only broke in for Lyon. I think it was September of 2021 that he broke in for Lyon. So that could wind up being an absolute steal, or it could wind up being another Hugo Ekitike, right?
Some scouts tell me Barcola is one of the best French talents in the world right now. Okay,
no, I believe
Mbappe's, behind Dembele's, they's very highly rated. So I've even had people saying Barcola's ahead of Ryan Cherky. That and I disputed at the time. And to see now Barcola going to PSG, that might be the case. But just going what you said with PSG, this is a new front trio too. Mbappe at the left, Kolo Muani goes Southampton forward, and then Dembele at the right. And Asensio Kang In Lee as options, ridiculous. And to go from Ekitike to Kolo Muani or Gonçalo Ramos, that's a clear upgrade. And a new midfield trusting the youth with Vitinha, Zaire Emery, and Ugarte.
Yeah.
Completely agree with what you said.
Beautiful.
So, big teams in this transfer window. I have to say Man City. For me, Man City, they lose Gundogan, they lose Mahrez, and they're stronger right now. It's unreal to me to think that, like, Doku is now there. I was absolutely shocked when that happened. And do not sleep on Mateus Nunes, okay? Guardiola went to City, Doku went to City, Kovacic went to City, and for sure remember that Mateus Nunes went to City too. He's gonna ball out with Pep Guardiola, something that he even said that he was one of the best midfielders in the world when Mateus Nunes was at Sporting. So get ready to see Mateus Nunes masterclass at Man City. But I have to mention too, Real Madrid. Real Madrid, despite not getting Kylian Mbappe, they had an unreal window that they took Arda Güler from Barcelona. They signed Fran Garcia for 5 million. And they signed Jude Bellingham. That is a 100 million impact type player. World class straight from the bats. And Florentino Perez keeps doing this. Elite business. And we got to go to that new stadium, Breton. We got to go to the new Bernabeu. Like, seeing the goal of Bellingham, the fans, the scenes. Mate, I was already thinking, Madrid, plane ticket.
FC Wonder Kid on tour. Come on, what's stopping us? Hey.
That's a good mention,
Shout out. shout out in the final moments of this. Shout out to all those teams that are likely going to be fighting for relegation in the Premier League this season because they do not stop throwing money.
Luton.
It is except Luton. They're just happy to be there, and it was great to see them get their first goal. But listen, Bournemouth and the transfers that they've done to be relevant in the Premier League this season, my goodness, I could be here for another 30 minutes walking through all the signings. Nottingham Forest getting Ibrahim Sangare from PSV Eindhoven for 30 million after selling one of their staples in Brennan Johnson. Just unreal business that shows you that I believe it's something like 1.2 or maybe it's more than that, like over $2 billion of actual transfer money spent by the Premier League. So I know I sit here and I argue about the merits of the Saudis doing it versus the Premier League doing it. And I guess the only real in between there is financial fair play and revenue and things of that nature. But my goodness, the clout of the Premier League is just absolutely insane. That teams that will finish 16th, 17th, and 18th or so in the Premier League are throwing 30, 40 million at some phenomenal players.
Mate, Forest, that's a good shout at the end. I believe Forest could be a team to watch in this transfer window. Sangare for 30 million. Vlaco Dimes from Benfica for 9. Nuno Tavares, they got him from Arsenal. I see here Nicolas Dominguez from Bologna for 15 million. And even a Murilo from Corinthians too. That is a very interesting shout and mega active in the deadline day. Nottingham Forest and Divock Origi. Oh my days. Yeah. They signed everything.
It's crazy.
But let us know
crazy.
what you wanted to see in episode 121. What have we missed? And if you're listening until now to episode 121, we're just asking for a like, okay? So please go bold and smash that like button and comment down below your thoughts about this one. And again, people, thank you so much for going bold in another episode. Take care.